end up being 460 pounds.
Okay, I got my gavel in the wrong place.
He drug us quite a bit.
Will the meeting come to order?
Oh, you'd have to be louder than that.
Come to order, please.
Thank you. Welcome to the Midcoast Community Council meeting of August 27th, 2014. Will the council members please introduce themselves, starting on my left?
Chris Johnson.
Dan Haggerty.
Dave Olson.
Laura Stein.
Lisa Ketchum. Aaron Deinzer will be here a little late, and Joel Janot can't make it tonight. And then we have Nicholas Calderon, Supervisor Horsley's aide, who will give us the Board of Supervisors report.
Thank you very much. First on the list is a long-standing issue that everyone's familiar with, and that is the issue of a fence at the end of 7th Street. And we wanted to provide an update on that. So the county will be going to the Planning Commission, hopefully in October. If not in October, then the first meeting in November. The last meeting in October has big wave, and so it's a big wave only agenda item, so we might have to push that to November. But the removal of a fence is considered development, and therefore we have to get a coastal development permit. And so that's where we are right now, but that is moving forward, and we are able to at least provide a date at this time, which is a big step from where we've been in the past. So look for that in the future, and at upcoming meetings I will kind of provide you guys with updates if anything changes. Second on the list, congestion management. So just wanted to let everyone know, one of the tools we used for our congestion management project for outreach was Mind Mixer, which was a website on the county's page. The county's linked to it. It's a independent service that we contract with. Some of you are familiar with it. Some of you have provided comments on it. So we are going to be changing some of that website. So we're going to be taking everything down and then re-uploading it. We will be sending out emails to everyone who provided comments, just letting them know that their comments were captured and that we are familiar with those and that they will be considered. But for the time being, everything's being brought down, and then we will re-upload. I believe we're going to have a mobile app for it and everything. So we're just improving the technology, but you will see that page come down shortly. It hasn't been visited in quite some time, so you know, I don't know. I think given the changes we've made to that project, fewer people are commenting on the old project designs, but I wanted to give everyone a heads up on that one.
When you say it will be put up again, will it have different choices, or I mean, what?
The way I envision this going is when we get the new designs, we would put those up and all the alternatives. Given that we've already committed to changing certain elements of the old ones, you know, we don't want people going to that website and seeing the old ones and being concerned about that if you know they're no longer an issue being discussed. Aaron, do you want to sit right here?
Try not to get all your
No, come on in. Come on in.
Yeah.
So there may be a gap when they all come down, and then
there
there'll be
will.
a gap.
I promise you there will be a gap.
But you'll put on the main page, you'll explain that
Yeah.
it's gone away and it'll be back. Or
Absolutely.
something like that.
And
Okay.
by the time we get the new designs, the website will be
All
ready.
right, great.
So, so there's that Surfers Beach project. Just wanted to let everyone know where we are with that one. So so we're moving forward with that. We've conducted interviews, and we're just waiting to select the consultant. Once we've made that selection, we'll let you guys know, and we'll be moving forward with that. But right now, we're moving forward with that and haven't made the official selection just yet. But we are moving forward, so we're excited about that. And then there were some questions regarding the parallel trail project, and so there's two elements of the parallel trail project. The first element is the section that we received grant funding from the Transportation Authority for $500,000 to do planning, permitting, and design, and we're getting ready to release the RFP for that. And actually, James from County Planning is leading that effort. He's doing a great job and doing a great job pushing that forward. So we appreciate that, and we're looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. The second element is the northern segment, which we went for grant funding for. I have not seen a result of that yet, but as soon as we do, we will let you guys know.
So just clarifying on
Yes.
the parallel trail southern segment compared to the first TA grant. So you're saying we've got our MOU done, we got all that done, and you're ready to send out the RFP?
Mhm.
So we're way ahead of the
I
process
see
of
what
the
you're saying.
first, yeah.
Yeah, we've moved a lot.
And it took a whole
quicker.
year to get to, so we're at the point where it kind of took a whole year to get with the other with
That's
the
correct.
crossings. Okay,
That's
that's great,
correct.
good news.
Yeah, so we're moving a lot faster on this. We've all learned a lot from that last process, and it's moving a lot quicker, as you pointed out.
Good.
And then I believe there was a question regarding funding for the congestion management projects that we're doing, which is the original funding you're speaking of, the $1.5 million from the Transportation Authority. So, big picture, we have $500,000 to do the preliminary planning study, which is the phase we're in right now, and then the project implementation document, which is Caltrans review of everything. After that is done and we know kind of what the project's going to look like, then we have $1 million to do all the environmental reviews and clearances and the permitting of the project. So it's $500,000 for that first part, $1 million for the second part, and then the county has $150,000 for community engagement. So that's where we are with that, and we're actually working on. We have to enter into a side contract with the consultants to make sure that they can come to more meetings. Their original scope was for 2 meetings, but we have already had 2 meetings. We don't want to miss out on any community engagement, so we're going to have a second contract with them to ensure that they can come to as many meetings as possible within reason. So that's where we are with that.
Question?
Yes.
Does that mean that
Len?
they would, sorry,
The mic?
this is just a quick question. So does that mean at the end of the 1.5 million, then the project as finally designed is in shovel ready but not yet funded? The actual construction?
Yeah. So the thought process, the thought process is yes. By the time we've gone through that $1.5 million, the project is designed and the project is permitted and the project is shovel ready. We just need to find the actual construction dollars. And it's our experience that people are willing to fund the construction element of projects. It's harder to find people to fund the planning and the design and the permitting. So, and that's. Oh, also there are there's a Fitzgerald Marine Reserve area of
Special biological
Special-
significance.
that's the one, area of special biological significance. The Fitzgerald Marine Reserve has been designated, I believe it's by the state or the Marine Sanctuary, as an area of special biological significance. And part of that is we have to do an outreach to inform the community as to what's going on. So there are newsletters in the back, and then they're also online, I believe. So please feel free to go ahead and take a look at that. It's really cool what we're doing over there, and we'd love everyone to know about it and let us know what you think. So now I am really done.
Well, to add on to that about FMR pollution reduction, the newsletter actually has good information, and there's things you can do at home to help the situation. So it's a good newsletter. It comes out once a year, and there's a new one out. Okay.
Wait, actually, I'm gonna just one more. Just a reminder to everyone that we are still in a drought, so any efforts you can do to conserve water are always appreciated. We don't know how long this drought is going to go on for, so we should take actions and assume that it's going to be longer than the next couple of months. No, I am done.
No ice bucket challenges.
Unless you're standing in a big, plastic kiddie
Unless you're going to
pool.
drink it later.
Well, you can collect it and then water your plants with it.
Are there any other government representatives who wish to report? Captain Mike?
A few questions to Nicholas's report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dan, you have a question for Nicholas?
Yeah, so just real quick, the website that went down is the congestion management or the transportation management?
Congestion. So the pedestrian crossings, raised medians, and left turn lanes.
Okay, just, all right, and then on the Surfers Beach, reinforcement. Do you know if there will be any, I imagine there's gonna be some kind of fill back, is there gonna be any engineered soil used to regain any of the erosion or the process, or do you not know those details yet?
Correct me if I'm wrong, what you're asking is, are we going to deposit, are we gonna place sediment or sand on the beach to regain
The
beach
sand
surface?
blows away with the wind, but engineered soil will, pack on a road is, just basically.
This specific project will strictly be to support the highway, provide coastal access and coastal recreation, so staircase and trail. We will not be depositing or replacing any sand or sediment of any sort in this project.
Okay. And just to clarify, that the parallel trail is still on, it's what we've talked about over many minutes, it's from Medio to Coronado, right? That's what we're talking about now?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, members of the council, members of the Midcoast community. So I was contacted by Supervisor Don Horsley's office and asked to reach out to Caltrans to help facilitate a traffic survey here on the Highway 1 corridor. So I have reached out to Caltrans and they have responded and said that they will be conducting that survey. I don't have a definitive time frame on when we might be able to see the results of that survey, but I will stay engaged with them and ensure that the work's being done, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that survey. We do not have a current survey that we're utilizing at the present time, so I feel that it would be extremely valuable to have that information and that data that we can look at, and it might even be able to provide us with a better picture as far as how we're going to do or how we're seeking to have deployment here in the coastal region for the CHP resources. I was also contacted by a member of the coastal community. I had an opportunity to look at a proposed safety plan that's out there involving a number of crosswalks and other safety features here on the Highway 1 corridor. We're certainly in support of any improvements that could be made as far as accident reduction, congestion management, anything we can do to make this coastal community a better place to work, live, and travel through. It's already an exceptional area within San Mateo County. We want to see that it continues to improve and it continues to be as safe as possible for everybody who comes out here. So with that, I'll open to any questions that the council may have or members of the community at this time.
Captain Mike, what's the traffic corridor that the traffic study is going to look at?
I don't have the specifics for the survey. I believe it's going to be from Princeton. Nick, you might know better the data because it was forwarded to me by Supervisor Horsley.
Yeah, so the speed survey will be conducted in the 4 communities that Highway 1 goes through, so Miramar, El Granado, Moss Beach, and Montera. The specific location to be selected by Caltrans based on what they think is best. By the way, I would just, on behalf of Supervisor Horsley, really like to thank Captain Maskerich for doing that for us. That was really important. We got an email from Caltrans after that last community meeting saying that they didn't think a speed survey was needed, but nothing was really making sense based on what they were saying. So we reached out to Captain Mike and he got everything done quickly and just like every other time we've gone to him, he's been phenomenal. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
All right, any further questions? Yes, sir.
Several years ago, there was an advisory committee for the Highway 1 corridor. Is there any integration? Is there any input from that those meetings?
I'm not familiar with that advisory group. Maybe the council has some background or some insight on that.
You talking about the Highway 1 safety mobility studies, or?
I don't know. I just seem to remember that about 6, 7, 8 years ago, there was a Highway 1, maybe it was Safety Advisory Committee. I don't know if it was safety or not.
The Highway 1 safety and mobility studies occurred in 2 segments between 2009 and 2011. That's likely what you're thinking of, and that's completed. Those studies are posted online. Len, you want to?
There was during that time a citizens Highway 1 advisory committee, but it was disbanded, not continued by the council.
All right, disbanded.
Oh, there was some suggestions made during those meetings, are any of those incorporated, or are they just out the window?
To handle this, Len, maybe you come up and field his questions? Or, I don't know what to say.
No, it's, without looking at records in the past, that it did exist, but I think, with it, Pat. Dave Holland had established that committee, which was there for a somewhat brief period of time, but Steve Monowitz, after taking on that responsibility and reviewing it, decided not to have a committee. So you would.
It's just been brought to my attention that the information that was produced is on the Connect the Coast Side website, which is actually the next agenda item. And actually, we have our consultants here who are going to discuss that, and we'll be able to probably address that during their presentation.
Thank you, Wallace. Okay.
I can say if you have any suggestions or if you have any concerns, whether it be with roadway configuration, signage, striping, foliage just overgrown, you can certainly reach out to me. I have a very strong relationship with our partners in Caltrans District 4 and be able to provide that information to them. And if it makes sense, if it's something that they can do quickly, they'll get out there, they'll get it done. And you'd be surprised, I mean, just trying to cut through the bureaucracy, whether it's a large agency like Caltrans or the Highway Patrol, sometimes it's just knowing who to reach out to, who I can contact, and getting, those relationships are in place, so just getting that information to them will go a long way in helping get those manners corrected. So if you have a concern, you have my card, don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'll forward that information along. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is public comment. Members of the public may speak up to 3 minutes on any topic not on the agenda. I have a speaker slip here from Len Erickson.
So, although this is on a topic we've just been discussing that wasn't on the agenda, so I'll continue with my comments. Before I do that, however, I want to add to the Captain Maskowitz love fest, if you will. In the process of getting background for these comments, I determined that Chairwoman Lisa had contacted Mike for some information relative to what I was doing, and got a quick reply last weekend. I sent him not one but 2 queries about this on the weekend, and the replies came back almost immediately. So not only does Caltrans reply to him, but when the citizens speak, he replies very quickly. And I was impressed because he's the area commander of the Redwood City area, but I learned during the exchange that he's now the acting commander for the whole Bay Area. So I think we should be pleased with the level of service. Anyway, I did have comments related to the current design on the crossings, a couple of points, but I was gratified to hear you say that they're going to be updated, so I'll hold those comments. However, from the exchange with Captain Maskowitz, I was inquiring on points related to crossings, safe crossings, and legal crossings. So I'm just going to both first quote from an exchange that Lisa had. And this is basically after, at a Midcoast meeting, the question was raised about the legality of crossing at Surfers Beach. And he replied, every pedestrian upon a roadway at any point other than within a marked crosswalk or within an unmarked crosswalk at an intersection shall yield the right-of-way to all vehicles upon the roadway so near as to constitute an immediate hazard. But B, the provisions of this section shall not relieve the driver of a vehicle from the duty to exercise due care for the safety of any pedestrian on the roadway, implication being, yes, you can cross there. I was more interested in crossing specifically in the Moss Beach area, wondering what the impact of having crosswalks there was relative to the legality of crossing, and having conversation, both listening to comment and having conversations. I find it's very hard to keep in mind what's within the law. So basically I asked him whether if you were crossing, let's say where the Virginia crossing would be, independent of whether it had flashing lights, whether there was a raised median or no median at all. He said it does not matter whether crosswalks have flashing lights, painted lines, or non-flashing lights. The duty to stop for drivers of vehicles is required. And he cited the specific excerpt from the California Code to discuss diagram details. But the bottom line is, although it's really nice to have a median for safety, once the pedestrian steps into the crosswalk, the traffic on both sides of the highway is required to stop and remain stopped until the pedestrian has passed the lane that they're in. then they can move forward. And this is an essential characteristic of putting a crosswalk down. It's one of the reasons why there are no crosswalks except at lighted intersections all the way through the coast, but why they're very much needed in Lost Beach and what the impact would be. He was also clear that the Highway Patrol would enforce this, and since the Moss Beach crossings are directly in front of the sheriff's office, I assume it would be a well-enforced crossing. So the bottom line, and this is to the report, Nicholas, is it's an important point for people, both, and clearly there's emotions on both sides, don't stop the traffic, do stop the traffic, etc. But making sure people are understanding what the requirements of the law are and what the impact is, I think adds an element of both importance and value. I myself happen to favor the crosswalks, even the 2 crosswalks there, but I think it should be good to have it well represented so you don't get into discussions and people say, well, this or that's okay. So thank you for the input.
Elizabeth?
May I add to discussing? Just a quick addition to discussing, I mean, following the logic that you can cross anywhere, why we need traffic lights. I observed many times people 10 feet from the traffic light stopping traffic and crossing. But the biggest issue is the parking along the highway one. And according to Caltrans, if I recall correctly, made a statement that yes, you can put up signs for no parking along the highway. The LCP in many places strongly suggests that enforce no parking along the highway. If cars won't park along the highway, you cut down 80% of the crossings. So signage, direct to traffic light, prohibit parking. And all of a sudden, crossing is not a huge issue anymore. Thank you.
Anybody else? Public comment? Do any council members have announcements? Laura?
Just to let people know that we are currently scheduling the candidate forums for the upcoming elections. So at this point in time, September 11th, I don't have a place yet, but we will be meeting for the Harbor District candidates. And for Coastside County Water District,
No.
we don't deal with that. Fire, water, I'm thinking water. Okay, that'll be October 7th. And once again, do we have a meeting place on that one?
Here, it sounds Tuesday.
That's going to be here, okay. So anyhow, I'll keep you updated with further details on those.
Okay, I have an announcement too. Plan Princeton, the draft alternatives workbook will be presented to the MCC at our next meeting, September 10th. And they plan to release the alternatives workbook to community for review on September 25th. And then there will be a community meeting Thursday, October 2nd at Oceano. Anybody else? Announcements? Okay. Next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have minutes for July 23, July 31, and August 13th. Do I have a motion?
I think we accept the minutes.
All in favor?
We don't need
Aye.
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 Approved unanimously, or 6-0. All right, so moving on to our regular agenda. Introduction of Connect the Coast Side, the Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan, which is a requirement of the county's local Coastal Program 2012 update. And the desired outcome is to collect feedback from the community regarding the goals of Connect the Coast Side, and also the MCC will appoint a representative to the Technical Advisory Committee for Connect the Coast Side. Kendall?
Yay! Hi, Lisa. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kendall Flint. I'm the task manager for the outreach effort for Connect the Coast Side. And tonight I'm basically going to give you an overview of what the project is and kind of talk a little bit about the outreach efforts that are underway and opportunities for you to participate, and we hope you will in an active way. Connect the Coast Side is basically, it's a comprehensive transportation management plan. And when we say comprehensive, it basically is going to be looking at all the different ways that we move throughout the coast side along Highway 92 and Highway 1. The Highway 1 portion of the program goes basically from Devil's Slide down to the Half Moon Bay city limits, and 92 from 280 over to the coast side. So it's looking not only at the major roads there, but also the arterials that feed on either side. It's looking at everything, including bicycle, pedestrian, transit, all the different ways that we move around. The idea here is to figure out, looking at the future of our community, what kind of capacity do we really have on the coast side with future investment and what we have now in terms of our infrastructure for transportation. In other words, at what point do we have adequate facilities to accommodate the needs for both residents and businesses that may come here to the coast side as we move forward. It's looking at what we call the build-out analysis, which is all the different things that might happen moving forward. So obviously we're looking at the City of Half Moon Bay's general plan. We're looking at how the individual communities might work out, part of Plan Princeton. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Now the plan is also going to take a look at the costs of and identifying funding for how we might accommodate these needs. So if we determine, for example, that we might need widening some places or left-hand turn lanes or more transportation, well, that has to be funded some way. And this plan will look at different ways that that funding might be identified. Now, as Lisa mentioned, this project is a requirement of the California Coastal Commission, and it was basically an implementation item, if you will, as part of the local coastal program. And again, what coastal is looking at is how people can come to this area, get to our coast, enjoy it, how our residents can be accommodated with their future needs. So it's something that we're going to be looking at in a really holistic way. The plan, as I mentioned, is going to look at what future residential and non-residential development might be supported. We hear a lot of folks, does that mean big wave? Yes, it means big wave. It means what happens in the City of Half Moon Bay. It means what happens in Montara, Plan Princeton. Again, holistic approach moving forward. As part of this plan, we've identified 11 segments, if you will, along the coastside area. And this is a shot actually from our project website. We can talk about that more in a moment. But the idea here is taking a look in each of these areas of what the needs are right now. There are some areas we already have some challenges, and what the needs might be moving forward if additional growth is brought to the coastside. One the gentleman was mentioning earlier, does this include other studies? Yes, this is building on the existing Highway 1 safety mobility improvement studies. It will also be building on the City of Half Moon Bay's general plan update, as well as the activities we have ongoing right now with Plan Princeton, the San Mateo County Congestion Management Plan, as well as recreational parking assessment that's being done by other agencies. When we talk about this, it's really a two-pronged approach. So we have the technical data. You may have seen little strips out where people are doing traffic counts. There's the actual, real things that are happening in terms of accessibility. That's a technical study. But then there's also a outreach study, is what does the public want to see moving forward. It's really important in this effort, too, that we coordinate with those local agencies. So that's one of the reasons we're really excited about being here tonight. I'll be in front of the City of Half Moon Bay in September on the 16th, and we're also meeting with a number of other agencies in the area to make sure that they're also engaged in this process. That would include the school districts, water districts, just everybody to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. Finally, we're going to be looking at the development of a finance plan. What can we afford? How can we do that? And how is that going to be realistically implemented? Once that's all figured out based on the public input and the local need, there'll be recommendations made for future development and investments. Now, all of these steps along the ways will be completely vetted in front of the public so people can say, that's a great idea, that's not a great idea, have you considered this? We're trying to go for a super open and inclusive process, which we believe will take about 14 months. And we're about, 4 months into it now, 2 or 3 months into it. So ways you can participate. Well, first of all, we've got a website called connectthecoastside.com. Very pleased to say that since we launched that, we've had over 1,000 unique website visits. It's generated over 200 individual comments based on all the individual market segments. That site will remain up for the duration of the project. The virtual workshop we have going on right now will be up until the middle of October. And that information will be used and shared with the public to inform what we do in that first workshop, which we anticipate being right now somewhere towards the end of October. So the public workshops, we anticipate having those to show you what are all the things the technical folks came up with, what are some of the ideas people had vetted or had suggested. And then, of course, we're also going to have e-news. How many of you are on our e-news blast to get things from Connect the Coastside? Well, if you're not already, you can go online and sign up for it. But we currently have about 3,500 coastside residents which are receiving those updates on a regular basis. So if you're not on it, please go to the website. When we talk about presentations and community events, one of the challenges we have here in the coastside is that people are really busy and they don't want to go to meetings. Not everybody here. You apparently all love meetings. God love you. But a lot of people don't. So one of the things we're doing is we're going out and we're making presentations for the local Rotary. We work with Sonrisas and the Rotocare Clinic to establish an opportunity with the Moonridge and the Hispanic and Portuguese populations to do a bilingual workshop for them, which will be happening in the middle of September. We're also working with Coastside Seniors, and we have a workshop scheduled with them, again, presentation to get them involved. We also have a technical advisory committee. Midcoast Council will be represented on that, as well as a number of other individuals and groups throughout the coastside area. That information will be provided on our website. We're in the process right now of identifying those individuals, but the idea was to get a cross-section of different views and different needs within the community to really reflect what we're going to have. As I mentioned, this is our virtual workshop. You can see here, you can go on, all we're asking really is for your name and your email address, your comment, and you have opportunities to give us comments based on traffic, transit, bike, pedestrian, wherever, within all the markets or the individual segments along the coastside. That makes it really easy for us and for you when we publish out, for you can identify where your comment was, what other people were saying, and again, this will all be published verbatim so people can see what people were talking about. Now with me tonight is James Hinkamp. Wave, James. James is the project manager for the County of San Mateo. Great guy, very enthusiastic about this project. And also with me tonight is Bill Loudon. He's the principal at DKS Consulting, and DKS is leading the consultant team on this effort. And we are all available tonight to answer any questions or concerns you might have. But again, the purpose of tonight was really to lay it out there that we really want this input at this juncture, the preliminary input, which is telling us what you perceive to be the challenges and needs on the coastside. And then when we come back at that October workshop, it'll be an opportunity to really start vetting some ideas and seeing what things work and what things don't. We're working very closely with the county. We're working closely with the other agencies. And really thank you very much for your attention and your excitement about this project. So I know we're very excited about it. And that concludes my presentation, Lisa. Riveting, I know.
Thank you. I have a question. So the recreation parking assessment, is that the parking study that there was a meeting like a year and a half ago to start that we haven't heard much about? Is it anticipated that will actually happen and get done in time with this?
I don't know about that. That was one of the, do you want to address that one, James? Because that came from the county as an additional document.
In recent conversation, I believe that the state parks is the sponsor for that project, and they said that they have initiated data collection.
GGNRA was also
and
close.
GGNRA,
Yeah.
GGNRA is the sponsor, state parks are also
Yeah, they're
involved, but since a lot of the land here involved state parks, they said that they have initiated data collection. They had released the RFP as of the early, and they had procured the consultants at the early summer. So recently they had initiated data collection. So we anticipate being in sync with that study.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we hadn't heard, so I kind of wondered.
Right. And in fact, we have made contact with some of the project managers on that project. So as information flows, we anticipate bringing it together.
Do any council members have questions for the consultants? Laura?
Yes, is there any kind of work with Samtrans going on, or is public transportation seen
Absolutely.
separate?
Absolutely. We'll be coordinating with Samtrans and also with if we need paratransit and other types of opportunities within the area, so that anybody that could possibly provide transportation would be included. And I believe Samtrans is also represented on the TAC, is that correct?
Yeah, we are in the process of identifying members from certain agencies around the county, really, not only on the coast side, but Caltrans, Samtrans, many partner transportation agencies will have a seat at the table.
Great, thank you.
Council members? Dave? Dan?
Yes, so you're just presenting tonight the status of the Connect the Coastside. Who is, so James is actually going to be the project manager, kind of?
He's manager for the county, and Bill's going to be actually doing the work, which is the preparation of the actual study.
Okay, and then you'll be presenting on an ongoing basis?
Correct. Updating
the community. Okay, so my question would be directed to the project manager. It sounds like that potential widening and a lot of changes. Just initially, I would like to suggest that you be really familiar with the town of Davis, and hopefully whatever comes out of this will be a very pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and not a lot more congestion where, widening roads, letting more people in here, and then there's just gridlock for everybody once they're here. So there's a lot of things that they've done up in Davis that are really, really great, and I'd love to talk to you offline, make sure that you are aware of them.
Absolutely, and just not only for Dan, but for anybody present and throughout the community, my phone number and email are available for any questions that come about during the project.
And they're also on the project website and on the presentation tonight, both of which are on the MCC site and on our Connect the Coast site. But I would also strongly urge people, this is really important, when you look at this map, there's various segments within the community, they're very different. You know, coming over on that segment 11, segment 12, coming over on 92 is a vastly different piece of real estate than coming through Montera. And so the ability for you now to go online and share those ideas and share those concerns is really beneficial to us and beneficial to the project. So I encourage all of you and all of the folks watching to take advantage of that, because it really is something that will inform the project and is very important in terms of the overall project evolution, if you will.
Can you just tell me where, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
She asked me if I had a question. I'm like, no, I just jumped in. Can you tell me where Area 1 ends on its farthest north point?
We identified, I believe that the Graywell Cove or the Devil's Slide.
Devil's
Yeah,
Slide,
Devil's Slide,
yeah.
yeah, including Graywell Cove. So it's really just the top of the Midcoast unincorporated county before Tom Lantos tunnels.
Okay, because that's one area in particular that gets really dicey, with a car on either side and a bicycle on either side and no bike lanes.
Right.
That's a hugely difficult area, so
Right.
I would
And
encourage you.
that's been the biggest comment online basically for that segment and some of these others is like near-death experience, so,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
I
that
have a
particular, that Graywell Cove project you mentioned is also being, is a focus area for other studies, including the pre-planning study, preliminary planning study for the highway crossing,
Mhm.
part of the congestion management plan, as it's been called, and the parking assessment study, since that's a key access point for Graywell State Park.
Okay, great, thank you.
Laura?
I hope you didn't answer this and embarrass me because I didn't hear it, but could you give a sense of the timeframe?
Approximately 14 months. So we anticipate that the
That's
project,
fast.
yeah, we anticipate the project will complete in 2015, largely in fall, I believe, is the way that it's certainly put at this point. So we'll be having 3 sets of community workshops. So the first one, again, October, we're probably looking at the next one happening in winter, January, February, and then there'll be a final one that will be happening sometime, I think we think May, June, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave?
I decided to speak up about something after all. So 92 has had numerous plans and studies for extra passing lanes, for example, particularly coming west on the Crystal Springs side. And they've been planned pretty much all the way through. Obviously, they have to be updated, but never implemented for lack of money. So we're talking, as I recall, in today's dollars, tens of millions of dollars. Is something like that on the table in this study?
I'm gonna have Bill answer that question. I mean, it's certainly something that has definitely come up.
Well, I wanted to say hi, and I'm Bill Loudon, the project manager for the consulting team, and it's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about starting this. And I wanted to say that our team is quite familiar with much of the transportation planning work that's going on. We've been very active. I recently completed a circulation element for Half Moon Bay, so I've been working in the area for about 5 years. We have Diet and Bhatia on our team to do the land use analysis. They've been working in Plan Princeton. They are leading a general plan update for Half Moon Bay. DKS is part of that team. We have Nelson Nygaard on our team really to specifically look at pedestrian, bicycle, and transit issues. They were on the Highway 1 Safety and Mobility Improvement Study for Highway 1. So, and Kendall is part of the Plan Princeton that Diet and Bhatia is also leading. So our team has been working in this area for a long time. And we will be looking at issues along 92 and looking at what has been proposed in the past and what other kind of concepts may come up. But I also wanted to say that this study is a little different than a lot of other transportation planning studies. Many transportation planning studies start with a future year development forecast and then figure out what needs to be done in transportation to meet that. This project is really looking at what's the balance between development and transportation. And the Coastal Commission has asked for a plan that has that balance, for which a transportation system can support the development that is forecast. So we will be looking at both, and this is where particularly Diet Batia will have a very important role on the land use and land use growth management side to say what makes sense given the resources available for transportation and what kinds of things can be done to accommodate it within the standards of quality for transportation service that have been set. So the answer is yes, we will be very much looking at 92, but in this balanced sense. And if the point comes where it doesn't look like there is a program that is either supported by the community or can be afforded, then we look back on the land use side and say, does that need to be pulled back and forecast?
I guess my question really in broader terms was, is the study going to have a cutoff saying, a project's over $10 million, we're not going to look at it. It's over $50 million, we're not going to look at it. Or is it pretty much at this point all open-ended?
I don't think we would start with any kind of cutoff. And one of the things we've been tasked to evaluate is the desirability of an impact fee, a development impact fee, where new development would pay toward a transportation fund. So that would be a potential new source. We would look at that to see what that might provide. Looking at what may come from the countywide sales tax for transportation for future projects, particularly working with Caltrans, what can be done with transit services and how might that best be funded. There are also new funding sources in the region for multimodal improvements. So we will be looking at all possible funding sources and not dismissing anything out of hand.
Thanks.
All right.
Just
Go ahead.
one more quick thing. I've been in this area for about 26 years now, and I've always loved the semi-rural feel of the area, and I know most of the visitors also love that feel, and so a plan that could drastically change the trend, could have a great impact on that feel that everybody loves here, including all the visitors. I just wanted to note that it's been come to my attention to a lot of people around the Bay Area on the other side of the hill. They consider this an asset to the value of their homes. We're situated in a great place. We can get to the mountains. We can get to Napa County. We can get to different areas, and this is just one of the jewels of this whole region. So I hope that the plan is handled as a jewel.
And we plan to, and that's why we're having lots of opportunities for input from the people that live here, from the organizations that represent the people that live here, and taking that input. So, yeah, like I said, it really is going to be a balancing act as to what is the community desire, what can be funded, and then what's the land use that will support.
Chris, did you have any questions? No. All right, I'd like to open the public comment now. Bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair, council members. One of the things Lois said made me think that's part of the overall study that you're doing. Are you including the Coastside Fire Protection District? And in particular, they're going through a fairly lengthy study right now on replacement of the 2 firehouses up here in the unincorporated area. And one of the major concerns, because we're very linear with no side roads or parallel roads, that they're pretty much stuck with Highway 1, and traffic impacts the response time. So obviously, they're trying to optimize where the locations are going to be to make sure they can reach the furthest points north and south and so on. And then I think the thing that Aaron brought up about the one section at the top, section 1 on your map, with no shoulders, cars parking, bikes in the road. Again, emergency response goes down on weekends when it's sunny, and we've been getting a lot of sunny weekends now because of the drought. So I guess it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. It depends. But But when you do the studies, do you do like a time series analysis where you're looking not only just at the weekday commute times, which are different with schools in, schools out, but also
That's a
impacts on weekends?
Great question. In fact, we were just talking about that, and Bill, I'm asking you to address that because we were looking at counts that were, I believe we're getting counts at least someplace that are going to be on, I would say, event or weekend sort of things where we can capture something that's different than the regular day-to-day, because we all know, living here, we know it's very different when it's a beautiful day here and it's not so cool over the hill. So, but yes, we'll be looking at police response, everything that relates to the safety and the providing of services to the coast, right? Because if you can't move police and fire vehicles efficiently up and down, that's a problem. So as we're saying, it's a balance. At what point does development exceed the ability for the transportation to deliver the services and the ability to commute in the area, right? So it's all, it's very holistic, it's all included in that. And that's when it comes back to the community, as Bill was saying, to determine where's the balance of maintaining our sort of quasi-rural, Aggie funkiness, our ability to generate economic development, have jobs, have tourism, because that's a big part of what we do here. And then, of course, be able to fund whatever additional infrastructure might be required to accommodate that growth. So it's a real balancing act, and that's why it's critically important that we look at all those things from a technical standpoint and then balance those from the public outreach standpoint.
Lynn?
So, Lynn Erickson, El Granada. So if I understand your comments directly, you hope to set a record for committee process in terms of speed, which would be great. A couple of comments with regard to your scope, which is almost all-encompassing. So just to check, so for example, I would assume in Moss Beach, where you have a high speed limit and fast throughput, and people have raised questions about access on and off, that things like that would be under your purview there.
Yes, when you'd be looking at alternative routes, like moving to a, like say, a secondary alternate pathways, that sort of thing, taking traffic off of Highway 1, putting in alternative routes. But yes, looking at all the ingress and egress, the safety factors, how much time it takes people to move from point A to point B, and then of course getting on and off the roadways.
Right. So also you've talked about parking studies and firehouse studies. This community council has done work on the California coastal trail, specifically where it crosses the highway, which is a fairly critical element. Are you aware of that documentation?
I believe so. I think we were looking at all the different reports that came along with that. If you look at the project website, there's actually a list of many of the documents that we'll be looking at. And in terms of the technical study, as Bill mentioned, largely because of the work that Diet and Body has been doing, both with Plan Princeton, with the city, and then now with this project, we're trying to look at everything. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why our scope schedule can be accommodated, because we're building on existing documentation, updating the traffic counts, and looking for those additional bits of studies that we need to enhance what's already out there. But again, the idea is to build on what's already been evolved from the community rather than start from scratch, which we really don't have to do.
Great. I'll certainly check that website. So in mentioning the, let's say, the traffic flow in Moss Beach or the trails, both of those have come up with regard to input to the congestion study we're doing now, whose primary focus is safe crossings. I've been one person who brings comments about the trails. The concern I developed, and it was going to be part of my public testimony, but I put it in here tonight, is that I sort of backed off from that and realizing that that study is and should be very narrow to create safe crossings, the best safe crossings, and both with regard to trails and as an impact crossing, or as traffic flow and more complex than just simple left turns onto the highway come up, that your study seems well suited to deal with that. And so I would hope as they bring back round 2 of the congestion management study that would help them make it more focused and tight, which will lead to fast progress, because you're bringing all the factors into consideration.
Right, but I think it's important to note that this particular study, again, is a balance for future investment in terms of the infrastructure and the financing, right? Some of these other studies that are happening concurrently might be better suited for the specific implementation.
Well, and I would question that in regard to the fact that, for example, as we brought questions of, well, what about raised medians?
Right.
We said, well, that will only be therefore a 5-year project, which sounds sort of long-term. So I would rather see that study concentrate on making a safe crossing and things that are more complex and need the kind of data you're generating would do that. So that's just a comment there.
And if you know where those are, I'm going to say again, website, get that comment
I
in.
would say that. Thank you. And finally, so Bill, you've been working with the Half Moon Bay, city to do this. So therefore, having been immersed in that, I'm sure you found out that if you talk, let's say, a lot to the Half Moon Bay City Council, and then you would work a lot with this group, they have very different views in terms of development.
Shocking.
All those obviously shocking. And, one of the big problems to get somewhere is how do you bring those together? So you know enough fun, and that's great.
Sure.
And it's not going away. So in terms of those balances, interested to see how you balance
Look
it.
at, it's interesting in looking at the project area, because Half Moon Bay is really designated as the more urban center of, as urban is going to be on the coast side.
Right.
That's our urban center. And when you go out to the different communities, it's very different, right? And even in the markets, even in the segments of the roadway that the study is looking at, you can definitely see how the consultant has separated those out to really, I think, reflect the individual character and needs. Like you mentioned, a place out of Devil's Slide that goes down great. That's a different segment entirely than looking down at the south end of town in Half Moon Bay. So I think the team's really, because of the work that it's been doing here, very aware about those nuances and knowing that what works potentially in the city of Half Moon Bay is not going to fly necessarily in Montera. So the study has to reflect that and accommodate that as well.
Absolutely. And so as you go through Half Moon Bay, or as you listen to them talk about a problem intersection, it's put up a traffic light. Whenever you say put up a traffic light here, everything comes up as a problem and looking for alternatives. So the question is, since one side says, can you please look at alternatives, whether they be roundabouts or raised medians, and the other says, it's obvious, put a traffic light there, which is sort of schizophrenic for the person driving through. So
It's the balance of balancing out the technical data, which we'll be sharing with the public. That'll be at that first meeting, right? With the input from the public. And really, at the end of the day, it's that combination of those things with the public input determining what they want to see, what they can support, and then what the financial impact of that is going to be. Do we have development impact fees? Do we have some other way of funding the project? It is an evolution. If you stand on the sidelines, you can't guarantee what's going to happen. So again, by the more people that participate, the better likelihood is that you'll get solutions that are appropriate for each of the communities that are included in the study.
So if you get loud and enthusiastic public input, but it sounds for all the world like 50-50, how will you help us go forward from there?
Oh, it's so much fun to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 5149. You start bribing at that point,
Does anyone else have comments or questions? Fran?
Hi, Fran Pollard. I hadn't planned on talking about this, but this is plan number 11 I just counted. I said last meeting, there's 10 plans going on right now simultaneously, so this is number 11. So I was going to ask Supervisor Horsley, do you think you can postpone some of them till next year after the elections?
I don't think so.
No, come on, there's too much to do. Anyway, did you also, I hear parking is involved in some of this?
We're looking at parking that relates to the, I always say that wrong, recreational parking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the two things right now, just to make it easier for you, that I can speak to is the Plan Princeton effort and the Connect the Coast Side effort. Both of these, even though people are very busy, all of the materials, everything we do in terms of the outreach, in terms of the meetings and what we're asking, are both available online. So you can access that whenever it's convenient for you, and every little bit will be on there for the duration. The City of Half Moon Bay is also using MindMixer as their outreach component, but I'm sure that they'll continue to do that as well. But I think take advantage of all those opportunities to keep up in that manner, which would be good. Also, some of these other studies have been completed. So even though that we're talking about them, we're building on things that are already done. At this point, we're really looking at Connect the Coast Side, Plan Princeton, City of Half Moon Bay update, and there's a safety and mobility component that I think is wrapping up.
You're leaving out Big Wave.
That's an applicant with a project. That's different than
Yeah, but that's
this.
bringing a lot of traffic and parking issues and everything. But what I wanted to suggest, which I have said several times at different meetings, working with the Harbor District and using all that parking, big parking lot they've got up there, that should be recreational parking up there. It sits empty most of the time. And instead of all the parking on the highway, it can all go up there for the beach parking. And all you have to do is put signs at Capistrano, beach parking here. I think that would help a lot if you have, we need to work with the Harbor District while they're still around.
Any other public comment on this item? Come on up. Could you tell us your name and your town?
Sure. Gary Naven, West Beach. I commend the planners for identifying 11 different districts and their individual needs. Absolutely correct that we are a weekend destination, particularly weekend destination area for the tourists on the other side of the hill. I also have a home in Laguna Beach, and one of the things I would hate to see is the congestion here that exists down in Laguna Beach. So I hope that in your planning, that the mitigation, the traffic planning that you do, takes in that concept into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public on this item? Okay, I'll close the public comment. Council members, any further discussion? Chris?
It was mentioned by a couple people, and I mentioned it last time, but I just want to stress again that I understand that you're considering future development and, you know, maybe the number of car trips that, I'm specifically referring to Big Wave here, number of car trips that Big Wave might generate and things like that. But I'm disappointed that there's no representatives of Big Wave here, because I feel like these things, while they're being considered, somehow it's still being done in a vacuum. And I am specifically referring to the mitigation of the problem at Cypress and Highway 1 of, you know, in reading the documentation, the EIR and stuff, that is something that it appears that Big Wave is responsible for. And yet we've been talking about all these things that we can do and all these possible solutions and where is this money going to be coming from? And that's the kind of left hand, right hand that I am not fully confident about right now, especially with regard to that specific project. It seems like they're getting a lot of free passes on things. And if they are responsible for the mitigation of that particular intersection and the traffic around that, I want to see that clearly reflected in these plans and studies, and I want them to pay what they are supposed to pay or be involved in. Again, I'm very disappointed that there's nobody here from that project, because it tells me that, you know, that they're not really involved, that they're not really caring about the entire big picture of traffic mitigation on the coast side, that it's their project, their little thing, and if they can maybe not have to be responsible for that intersection, all the more the better. So again, I'm just not fully feeling like Big Wave in particular is integrated into this overall thing beyond some basic traffic numbers of what it would do to increase traffic on the coast.
The challenge is that project, because it's that's a project separate from our study. However, whatever happens with that project, however that moves forward with the county, that impact would be part of our technical analysis. The problem is that this study won't be completed until after that project theoretically has gone through Planning Commission Board of Supervisors. So that will be that'll be determined one way or the other, however it goes, before we're done. But whatever happens with that information will be incorporated in this study. And that's just a matter of the timing of the way that these two projects came together. And frankly, you know, if other projects come up during this time frame, that's the nature of planning. So you can't retroactively go back to an application. Had Big Wave come later, different scenario. But at this point, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that we're looking at all the various projects that may or may not come before the county or before the cities, and taking into consideration what those impacts might be and helping us inform what the overall impact would be to the coast side. So it won't be ignored, but they're probably not going to be impacted by this particular study because they theoretically would have gone through.
Anybody else on the council have any further comments?
Yes, just real quickly, you reminded us to go to the different segments on the coast side because there's unique needs in different areas. I just want to remind that there is that one common need all up and down Highway 1, is that there's a lot of traffic, it's hard to get out on the road safely, it's difficult to cross the road, pedestrians, bicycles, safely. So that's a commonality. There's a little, little one flavor up here, a little one flavor down there, more use on this road. Other than that, is there anything that, other than the obvious of the uniqueness of, certain roads are used more, is there, as far as the separation of the segments, is that basically why it was done? Just
Well,
because-
it's
Is there anything
that,
else that you're looking for specifically?
we're looking
that
at
may
this
not
point
be
for
obvious?
what do you think are the obvious things right now that are missing? Like, if nothing gets built, what are the problems right now? What are preventing us from accommodating the existing need now? And knowing that we're probably going to grow slightly as time goes on. To the extent of how large, I don't know. But we're asking for people right now, from the snapshot of today, what do you identify as being the challenges and problems that are in the whole area? Whether that's by segment or that's by the entire area, you can also send a comment in that is global and say, I am concerned about, speeds on Highway 1, weekend speeds, impacts for festivals, fairs, Mavericks, Pumpkin Festival, marathons, the whatever was done over Easter, whatever that might be, you can put in that comment as well. And right now, it's just basically a big global, tell us what you think. And then we're going to come back with some, again, technical data with what we've heard from the community and say, okay, which one of these resonate everywhere? There's already quite a bit of commonality on the comments we're getting. We're seeing consistently the same type of things, a desire to keep the character, a desire not to overbuild. We're not seeing people go online and say, gosh, we want to see Highway 1, 3 lanes wide on each side. That's not in the character of our community. We are seeing people talk about additional left-hand turn lanes, potentially a climbing lane on 92 going westbound, all kinds of things like that, bike and pedestrian access. These are all different types of things that we're looking at. So right now it's the opportunity to, color in the dot however you want to see it. Tell us whatever you think might work. But again, you've got plenty of time between now and say mid-October to do that. But I think it's important to take advantage of the opportunity.
Thank you.
So mid-October would be the time to get your comments in before that date for them to be most useful for
Yes.
this next stage.
There'll be additional opportunities throughout the entire process.
But for this next
But for this
iteration,
next thing, yes.
Mid-October, okay. Elizabeth, we have one, okay. Reopening public comment?
I'm sorry, I just tried to understand
All right.
what exactly this entity tried to achieve. My understanding now, just sitting here and listening, that you try to assess the status quo and adjust needs for traffic solution and problems. But you also connect to the future development. When development comes in, you will assess the traffic implication of that development. Or you assess the LCP build-out numbers and you assess the development according to the
Right.
LCP numbers.
It's the balance between at what point do we have infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, roads, bike trails, whatever that might be, to accommodate the growth on the coast? And at what point do we want our growth to
Right. Now
stop?
we reach a level
Yeah.
F, which
Yeah.
happened
Yeah.
southwest. Yet a development is trying to come in. What is your role now? You are assessing the development to come up with a solution, or you have the right to say, no, don't develop because we reach the
No,
F?
we're not, at this point, we're not saying no, don't develop. So, because I know there's a lot of concern about big wave. We have nothing to do with big waves
I'm
saying
not
yea or
just
nay.
talking about big
Yeah,
wave future.
But what
There's
we're,
an
right.
LCP, listen, just one moment. There's an LCP build-up number, which if you read it, hopefully everyone does many times, pretty clear what the goal should be. Now, if side developments coming in, circumventing, you are an agency or a new entity, now you can make decision that it will work because so and so and so. Or you have to go and amend the LCP, go back to the Coastal Commission and come back that it only works if this will work and the community likes it, the Coastal Commission amend the LCP and it will work. I just wonder if you're talking about a practical traffic solution entity or a future, yet one more entity we have to go to.
We're working for the county, so it's not another entity. Okay, so it's still going through all of the, let me see if this helps. When this study is completed, and it'll say, here's what we think the capacity is for future transportation. Here's the capacity of what we can do for infrastructure, and here's how we're going to pay for it. If a project comes in, and for whatever reason, vastly exceeds that, or it would be out of compliance. So it wouldn't be
So
environmentally.
what would you do in that case?
We wouldn't. It would be when they put together the environmental impact report for that project, they would cite that that project was not in keeping with the local coastal program.
So you will
Right,
do
so
that
it would not be able to be
You
built.
will do that for Big Wave because definitely.
We won't do it
that's
for
the
Big Wave
case.
because Big Wave's already in process.
No, it's not in process. It wasn't
The
approved.
application has been filed with the county, so it's already started to move through, right?
Right.
So they're, at this next point, they're gonna be moving through the process with the planning
So you
commission.
grandfathered it in, and after Big Wave. you
It'll
do
only
future
affect, it'll
projects.
only affect projects that come to the coast side after the plan is adopted by the county and considered by
Why
the
did you
coastal
start
commission.
this 4 months ago when it wasn't in a process? I mean, this just looks like you are
Right.
creating solutions to a problem which is.
I think it's helpful to remember that this comprehensive transportation management plan is a requirement that the coastal commission
Right.
asked the county to do. And this is to help. This came from the coastal commission, this requirement. And so there was some delay, it cost a lot of money, so it took a while to get the money together, but we're doing it now. So it seems like a good thing. Sabrina.
Yes, I'm glad that this is happening, and my comment is just slightly off topic, but kind of related, and since the California Highway Patrol is here tonight, I wanted to mention that on Saturday, on Cypress Avenue, there's a ditch on the right-hand side of, well, if you're coming out onto Highway 1 from Cypress Avenue in Seal Cove, there's a ditch on the right-hand side, and a woman driving a Volkswagen tried to make a right-hand turn at that intersection to get onto Highway 1 to avoid the backup of cars that happens there at that intersection, and it's kind of a narrow road. And her car actually drove into the ditch, and I guess she had to be towed out. I didn't stick around to find out what happened, but that intersection is just a real problem area. And then, of course, you know, there's safe crossings, but that's, I know there's a different plan happening for that, those issues. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay, I think we wrap this up. I guess, you have any closing points you wanted to hit on?
Please participate.
Yeah, so
Please
mid-October, by mid-October to get your
Mid-October
comments
on the
in?
website, and it'll continue
All
through
right.
the whole thing, but just for the first
Yeah,
phase,
for the
mid-October,
first
and
phase.
again, we'll
All
have
right.
that data very soon.
Great.
And
I'm
hopefully,
gonna need it.
and of course, I'm plugging into Plan Princeton, October 2nd.
Thank you, Captain.
Right, Donna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
I know, what a nice surprise.
Yeah, that's all. And do you happen to know?